Because George is no different from everyone else in the class, yet I would be treating him differently. The moral reasoning principle is not a moral principle. Therefore, the current example is not stating the moral principle that all teachers should be kind to all students. What it is saying is if all x's are y's, then if this thing is an x, then it is a y. So if all students are exempt from the final, then George, who is a student, should be exempt from the final as well. The second principle states, if someone appears to be violating the consistency principle, then the burden of proof is on that person to show that he or she is in fact not violating the principle. So let's get back to the previous example. If I say George is the only student who has to take the final, then I would have to prove that I am not being inconsistent. I would have to give a valid reason as to why George is the only student who is required to take the final. Principle 2 enables us to avoid having to answer whether two separate cases count as the same or different. In other words, if you cannot point out the moral differences between two cases, and the person stating the case cannot point out the moral difference in a way that is acceptable to you, then you are justified in regarding that person as inconsistent. For example, if I say I approve of the morning after pill, but not abortion, and my explanation as to why I feel that way does not sit well with you, then you are justified in regarding me as inconsistent. We previously learned about inconsistency ad hominem, which is the fallacy we commit when we think we rebuke the content of what someone else is saying by pointing out their inconsistency. For example, if I say that I like to go fishing, but I think it's wrong to hunt, and my excuse for the moral difference is hunting is cruel, while fishing is just relaxing, and you don't agree with my excuse, then to you, I am being inconsistent. However, just because I cannot give a valid moral difference does not mean that it is right to hunt or wrong to fish. Inconsistency ad hominem occurs if you tell me that I am being inconsistent because I said it was wrong to hunt, yet I go fishing. Inconsistency ad hominem does not occur if you tell me that I am being inconsistent and that I must change my position on either hunting or fishing. Moral principles are value judgments that are general in nature. They refer to what should be done in all similar cases, not just one single case. For example, saying that stealing is wrong is a moral principle. However, saying it is wrong to steal from homeless people is a specific moral valid judgment and not a moral principle. Moral reasoning takes the form of deducing specific moral value judgments from general moral principles. So how does moral reasoning fit in with logic? From a logical standpoint, deriving a specific moral value judgment from a premise that is not a value judgment is puzzling. For example, Elliot's father depends on Elliot. Therefore, Elliot should take care of him. In this example, the premise, Elliot's father depends on Elliot, is not a value judgment, where the conclusion, Elliot should take care of him, is. So how do we logically get from the is premise to the should conclusion? The answer is through the unstated general moral principle. The conclusion of the argument follows logically from the stated premise once the general moral principle is assumed. In this example, the general moral principle that is not being stated is that all adult children should take care of parents who are dependent on them. Now that we know the general moral principle, the claim is read as this. Elliot's father depends on Elliot. Adult children should take care of their parents who are dependent on them. Therefore, Elliot should take care of his father. This is a valid deductive argument. If we agree with the premise that Elliot's father depends on Elliot, but disagree with the conclusion that Elliot should take care of his father, then what we're disagreeing
created using Powtoon.